Minors are once again not allowed to go out in Metro Manila starting today as the surge in COVID-19 infections continue. The Philippines will be suspending the entry of foreigners and non-OFW returnees later this week. Authorities will also be cutting the number of inbound flights over at the NAIA. Situation is not getting any better for the healthcare sector. Referral hospitals in Metro Manila are now at critical level, while private hospitals are now appealing for help from the government. Following the implementation of a metro-wide curfew, checkpoints are also making a comeback in the capital region. And iconic crosses light up the Cebu-Cordova Link Expressway for the 500 years of Christianity in the Philippines. Fast, focused, and fearless. Here's everything you need to know to jumpstart your day. I'm Riza Diaz. Jumpstarting today's newscast with the Metro Manila Council deciding to prohibit minors from leaving their homes starting today. The MMDA confirmed the move, saying those aged 17 years old and below are no longer allowed to go outdoors for the next 2 weeks. MMDA Chairman Benher Abalos explained that Metro Manila mayors implemented or re-implemented age restrictions due to the spike in cases. The Healthcare Professionals Alliance Against COVID-19 says COVID referral hospitals have now reached critical occupancy levels. Recall that healthcare professionals are not yet asking for a timeout despite the recent surge in new infections in the metro. This is because the overall occupancy rate of COVID beds in NCR is just at 40%, way below the 70% critical level. But on 1PH Totoo Lang, HPAC's Dr. Tony Dance said the situation in government referral hospitals is much more concerning.
The problem is not general na lahat overloaded. Merong distribution, maldistribution problem. At mukhang sa sitwasyon natin, unang napupuno yung mga COVID referral hospitals. No? Kailangan mag-ingat na kasi pag napuno yan, malamang tumaas ang ating mga mortality rates dahil lampas na sa kakayahan natin.
PGA spokesperson Dr. Jonas Del Rosario confirms this, saying the government hospital is now seeing COVID admissions increase to 4 months high. He said they were averaging about 60 COVID patients back in mid-February, but the figures have now doubled. Del Rosario added that if the current trend continues, PGH might be overwhelmed in less than a week.
Right now, PGH is, we have stretched our beds again for COVID to almost close to 200. And we have about 160 over 200. So almost, 80%. Now, you were saying that kung 11,000 or 15,000 a day, siguro kung ganun talaga ang rate, baka in 2 to 3 days, wala pang isang linggo, puno na rin kami.
Private hospitals are also appealing for help from the government, citing both funding and staffing problems. Dr. Jose De Grano said that private hospitals in the metro are struggling with a shortage of nurses as well as delayed reimbursements from PhilHealth. De Grano told One News Chiefs that the present situation is still manageable since there are private hospitals in the metro that can still accommodate new COVID patients. But he also said it would only take about 4 to 5 weeks for these hospitals to reach full capacity if current trends continue.
I'd like to ask the government to help the hospitals. A lot of hospitals are only trying to survive or are only surviving because they have downsized, no? And they have minimized, they try to minimize their expenses. And if government please they should help the hospitals get first, of course, their funding from PhilHealth, which are very much delayed.
Healthcare workers are leaving it up to LGUs and the business sector to decide how to prevent the surge in COVID-19 cases in the country. But they still plan to submit a detailed recommendation to the President on what steps the government can take to slow down transmission. Greg Gregorio with the story.
Despite the sharp uptick in COVID-19 cases, health workers say they are not asking for a timeout just yet.
Lockdown is still an option kung umabot tayo sa punto that the healthcare system is really overwhelmed. But at this point, we feel na meron pa tayong pwedeng magawa to mitigate the surge.
The Health Professionals Alliance Against COVID-19 recommends the following actions instead. For the business sector, a work-from-home arrangement, as well as staggered work hours to avoid congestion in mass transportation. Companies are also urged to improve ventilation and intensify implementation of health protocols. For local government units, aside from rethinking the implementation of curfew hours, HPAC recommends the implementation of more granular lockdowns. Barangay Health Emergency Response Teams should also be beefed up, and coordinated contact tracing measures should be enhanced. HPAC also urges active transport, takeouts, and open spaces for leisure. HPAC plans to submit these recommendations to the President.
Let's stop blaming the people. They're doing everything they can to comply. Kaya lang, we force them into crowds, di ba? We force them into enclosed space.
Some health workers still get infected after receiving their COVID-19 jabs, including 3 asymptomatic nurses who, according to the Filipino Nurses United. The Philippine College of Physicians say some doctors also tested positive even after receiving the first jab. But infectious diseases specialist Dr. Ronjin Solante explains this is not linked to the vaccine.
Ang akala nila na ang bakuna ang nag-cause ng COVID. No, it's not. It seemed that that infection that was already there prior to vaccination.
HPAC also clarified that transmission is still possible even when an individual has been vaccinated.
It prevents disease. It will only protect people from manifesting signs and symptoms of the disease. Pwede pa rin tayong mahawaan.
The health department said they will investigate the matter. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
The National Task Force Against COVID-19 is temporarily prohibiting entry of all foreign travelers and returning non-OFWs for a month. In a memorandum circular, the NTF said they came up with a decision after the health department logged over 5,000 daily cases on Monday. The new travel ban is set to be enforced starting March 20 until April 19. However, medical repatriates and distressed returning overseas Filipinos will be allowed to come home. The task force is also limiting all inbound international arrivals in NAIA to 1,500 passengers per day for all airlines combined. This measure will take effect on March 18 to April 19. Essential workers in Metro Manila are reminded to bring their ID or other proof of employment at all times. This as checkpoints have returned all over the metro to once again regulate social mobility. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez giving you a front seat to the story.
Comeback is real, as the young say, and for Metro Manila, the curfews and checkpoints have certainly come back. The PNP deployed 9,000 policemen Monday night for the first day of Metro Manila's unified curfew. The aim? To roll back the rising cases of COVID-19 before they reach alarming levels. The curfews last from 10 p.m. until 5 a.m. every night. Here at the boundary of San Juan and Quezon City, policemen have set up one of hundreds of checkpoints across Metro Manila.
The objective is simple. Police personnel must strictly implement the uniform curfew hours and ensure that people will follow the minimum health standards.
The rules are simply don't go out unless you can prove that you need to be out. That means you need to bring ID or documents to show while you perform an essential task at night. On the first night, police decided to be more lenient. Most were given a warning, but the next time, they may not be forgiving. This man claims he never heard of the curfew.
So naman kuya, alangan di mo alam na may COVID?
Makibalita na lang po tayo sa mga kapitbahay.
It's a far cry from the severe restrictions imposed on Metro Manila exactly a year ago. On March 15, 2020, a lockdown was imposed on Metro Manila and later expanded to the rest of Luzon. Authorities are hoping that it wouldn't come to that again.
So what they usually do here is they verify the purpose of the travel of the motorist. So if it's for work, they check the company ID or a certificate of employment. And if it's for food delivery or services, they check the ID as well. And tinitignan din nila yung bag para to make sure na pagkain nga yung i-deliver.
But there are also other people caught for violating other laws and ordinances like the wearing of face masks and shields and physical distancing. At the boundary of Marikina and Rizal, 3 people were caught for driving without a license.
Na-impound yung isang motor, tapos pinaintindi sa amin yung bagong implement na curfew.
For some Filipinos, health protocols are not the only rules that they can follow. I'm Pamela Vasquez and we are One News.
Historian Xiao Chua says the country will take on a Filipino-centric theme to celebrate the World Circumnavigation Quincentennial. The PCOO earlier said local celebrations will veer away from the misguided notions of Magellan's supposed discovery of the Philippines. Instead, the focus will be on Lapu-Lapu's victory in the Battle of Mactan and will underscore the fact that prior to the arrival of the Spaniards, the Philippines already had its own civilization. Chua seconds this, saying there is a need to highlight the colonial intent of Spain's arrival in the Philippines.
Hindi natin may kakaila na ang Magellan Elcano Expedition, ang pinakaunang umikot sa mundo, ay isang achievement ng humanity at ng siyensya. So yan ay mahalagang pinagdiriwang ngayon sa ibang bansa, international celebration ito.
Yes.
Kasi gusto natin ilagay natin yung bansa natin dun sa important event na yon. Pero sabi natin, gawin natin Filipino-centric.
Local celebrations have kicked off in Eastern Samar with a procession of the Blessed Sacrament of Humonhon. That's on the eve of the 500th anniversary of the arrival of Christianity on the island of Giwan town in Eastern Samar. 8 giant crosses are set to light up the sky along the Cebu-Cordova Link Expressway as the CC Lex joins the celebration of 500 years of Christianity in the Philippines. Gerard de la Peña has the story.
Bridge of Tomorrow. This is how National Geographic Channel Asia touted the Cebu-Cordova Link Expressway Bridge. At 8.5 kilometers long, this bridge has surpassed the 2-kilometer San Juanico Bridge, connecting Samar and Leyte as the longest bridge in the country.
It is envisioned not just as a landmark, but talagang an engineering marvel at saka an iconic structure.
Apart from it being a structural wonder, the CCLEX also has historical and religious significance, with the country celebrating 500 years of Christianity in the Philippines. It was in March 1521 when ships led by Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan docked in Cebu. There will be galleons arriving in the island this weekend to commemorate the day, which also marks the arrival of Christianity in the Philippines. This megastructure has 2 of those big pylons, and there are 4 crosses on each pylon, which are illuminated at night. These crosses are an allusion to Magellan's Cross and emphasizes Cebu's importance as one of the first few places in the Philippines where Christianity started. The 840-meter high crosses will be lit up on the evening of April 15 to mark the quincentennial anniversary of Christianity in the country. Cebu Archbishop Jose Palma will lead the blessing of the crosses. The CCLEX Bridge is expected to be finished by the end of the year and will be open for public use within the first quarter of 2022. It's expected to cater to 50,000 motorists a day, decongesting the old Marcelo Fernan and Mactan-Mandaue bridges. The new structure is also seen to aid the development of Cordova, a third-class municipality, as well as Cebu's economy with 80% of shipping companies in the Philippines based in the province. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, we are One News.
And that's how the day is shaping up to be. Join us later at 10 in the morning as we monitor the day's biggest stories from sunrise to sundown. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.